Hello, welcome class. How's everybody doing on this week one of going online? I hope everything's going well for you. Um, Probably going to take you a little while to figure out all of your classes and to be able to make that work. Um, so if there's ever a point where you're falling behind on assignments or anything, just let me know. I'm willing to work with you and to be patient during this time because it's difficult for me. I'm again recording on YouTube. It's not really the format that I want to use because I'd rather use something different, Zoom or what the schools told us to do is Kaltura, and it should record and should allow me to be able to navigate and show things on the screen as I record, where you just hear my voice and I can go through PowerPoints and things with you. But I really can't get that technology to work very well. So here we go on YouTube again. I'm gonna continue to figure it out, but we'll see how it goes. So today I'm just gonna show you my screen that I'm working on. Let's see here. I don't know if I can spin my screen. I'm not sure what's going on here. Well, it's not gonna let me. So I'm just gonna show you. I am in Files, PowerPoints. Today we're working on admission essay. So 13 admission essay. And then you can download that PowerPoint and kind of follow along with me. Sorry, I can't even get my own camera to work with me today. So anyway, 13 admission essays. That's what we're going to be covering today. So the first thing to know about admission essays, it can be called different things. It may be called a personal statement. It may be called an admission essay, liberal arts sketch, autobiographical sketch. Basically, it's an essay about you and why you want to go to graduate school and why you want to go to their program, whoever you're writing this to. So first you want to find a prompt, and your prompt is going to tell you specifically what they want you to write about. And you need to follow that prompt to a T. A lot of things will be to see if you can follow instructions. So if it says a 500 word essay, I've seen those. I've seen, 2 page is pretty standard. A certain word format or 10 pages. I have seen them that big. So whatever they're requiring you, whatever they're asking you to do, if they have you put it in a certain font, you follow those directions to a T, and whatever they want you to write about. So one of your assignments this weekend is to turn in the prompt. So go to a program, go to the ones that you've already looked at or a program that you're interested in, and go to the part where it's talking about the admission process and find the admission essay or the personal statement, whatever they call it, and you're going to write your essay to that. So whatever they ask you to do, follow those guidelines, and that's how I want you to write your admission essay this weekend. Now, if you can't find one, look up a program. If you're looking for a marriage and family therapy program or whatever, if you can't find one in the program that you've looked at, go in and find a prompt and for another program that's similar, and submit that prompt, and that'll be its own submission, and that's one of the things that you have to do this weekend. The other part is to follow that prompt and write your admission essay. So don't go in and find a 10-page prompt if that's what it's asking you to do. That's what I want you to do. So find one that works for you. It doesn't have to be that. And it would be better if you're writing it to a program that you really are interested in. So find that and submit that. That'll be one of your submissions, the prompt, and it'll give you instructions or like, tell me about your family history. Why do you want to attend this program? It will give you a couple things to talk about. Now, I like a pretty full prompt because, it does give you some structure and some things to cover, because a lot of times students are like, well, I don't know what to write about, and that's okay. But some prompts are pretty in depth. If you go to BYU's MSW program, their prompt is pretty in depth. And so, but if that's the one you pick, that's what I want you to write towards. Now, another thing to keep in mind is follow that to a T. If it says 500 words, which 500 words is very difficult. I don't know what's harder, 10 pages. I wouldn't be able to write 10 pages or 500 words. That's about a tweet size to let someone know why you want to attend their graduate school program. So that would be pretty difficult. But if that's what it's asking for, that's what you need to do. You need to follow those instructions. And then whatever it's asking you to write about, when you finish, you need to go back through your statement and say, okay, did I cover everything that they asked me to cover? And I've seen where students have, if it says, tell me about your family history and, whatever it's asking you to write about. Why do you want to be in the University of Utah's psychology program? If that's what it was asking you. I've seen where they've written it out and then, written to that point so that they make sure, because you make it easy for the reader. If instead of them having to look through it and see, did they cover every point that we asked them to write about, you could put that in there and write to it. And then the next thing says, why do you want to attend, this program? What do you bring to the program? Whatever it is they're asking you to write about, you make sure that you're covering it. So I've seen people do it that way. Okay. So the deal with an admission essay. So why did they have you write one? Well, you're gonna apply to graduate programs, and you're on paper unless you've networked with them and met them, and they may know who you are. Your admission essay is one thing that gives you a voice. They'll look at your transcripts, they'll look at your resume or CV, and they're beginning to kind of figure out what type of student you are based on, just being on paper. This gives you a voice. This, you shouldn't just be covering what's on your CV or resume. It should have, it should be about you. And they should be able to pick up on your excitement. This is a big time for you in your life, and you will need to tell them why you want to be going to graduate school and why you want to be specifically in their program. So make sure that they're excited when their readers see your excitement when they read it. You got to remember, it's got to be a clear, coherent essay. There are some schools, especially English programs, that will have you submit a paper that you wrote. So think of this as a writing sample. Like, it needs to be written well. It should tell a story. I think that's one part that if you can catch their attention and you're telling a story about yourself and you make it interesting, it will make them want to read it. And you've got to think, these are professors that are going to sit down and read in a big block of time. However many they're going to sit down and read. It could be, one, and then they take a break and come back and read another one. Or maybe they're sitting down to read through 15 of these at a time. So catch their attention. Make sure you sound interesting on paper. Make sure you let them know why you want to go to their program. And it really should be interesting. And it shouldn't just be repeating what's on the resume or CV. and it gives them where you become three-dimensional to them as a candidate. It should paint a picture of you and your story and why you want to be at that program. Again, I've seen it from 2 to 4 pages, 1 to 10 pages. Um, it tells that program about you as an individual and why it should matter. Um, it's an opportunity to discuss things that weren't on your resume or CV. And it also allows you to cover any discrepancies. So say, you have a 3.3 GPA, but, your first few years of college didn't go very well. And you're trying to show them that, in your general classes, I didn't do that well, but you can look at my major classes and see that I really love this subject. And so any discrepancies that you have, any big time gaps in your work history or your school history or things, you can cover those types of things. And it's you can demonstrate your experience and why you connect to the field. And you can let them know that you've researched their program and you know a lot about their program, because really all schools want to hear is why our program, what you're going to bring to the table for us. You got to think of it as they're building a cohort, they're building their graduate program. So why should they want you in their program? So you can write about things that let them know what type of student you are and that you're kind of in it for yourself to make sure you're going to get to your goals and your objectives. But you can also let them know things like that you're going to help other students in the program. You're looking forward to learning from and with the other students in the program, and that you have a lot of things to add. So be a good team player too. There really is no set formula. You really don't have to title this thing unless you want to. I've seen it all kinds of different ways. But it's your opportunity to have a voice. You can write it in first person. It is about you, so it should be in first person. And you can write I, like in resumes and things, personal pronouns. All that's out the window. This is your story. There shouldn't be any blanket statements. Write it specifically for each school. Let them know that you're knowledgeable about each program that you're writing about. So you need to, whatever schools you're attending, you need to go to their website. You need to look at blog posts, anything in the papers, like anything you can learn about their program, where you can show them that you've done your research and you're knowledgeable about their program. You can do that. Now, here's another thing to think about. You don't want any blanket essays, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Unless their prompt and their writing is very specific, you should, if you're applying to psychology programs, most of the body of this statement you should be able to reuse. You're not rewriting it for each one, but you do want to change the specifics and make it specific for each program. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to say it a few times during this: read and follow the instructions, whatever their instructions are, and then go back through it and make sure, is my word count, where it needs to be? Have I followed the page, requirements? Have I covered the questions that they've asked? Whatever they say, you need to make sure you cover that and follow those instructions. Okay, I'm going to skip through all of the titles there. It's just some pretty bad titles. And remember, one thing to remember is, if you're submitting it, think about, don't, file it as this is the worst thing I've ever had to do, and file it as that, because a lot of times those schools can see what you've filed it as. So don't file it as this sucky essay that I had to write, and then turn it in, because they can see what you filed it as. But come up with a clever title if you're going to, but honestly, you really don't have to. You can write about your experiences that are most relevant to your interest in the field. Let them know how you're connected to the field. Let them know what your goals and things are in the field. So, if you plan on becoming a therapist someday, let them know how this program is going to help get you to those goals and things that you have set. Um, you can write about friends, family, community, work, home life, any of those things. But whenever you're writing, make sure that you're being positive about everything. Turn a negative into a positive. And honestly, you want to write about the positives. There's no need to discuss anything negatively. Don't let them know that you want to be a therapist because you've worked with a therapist most of your life about your own life. They want to make sure that you're in a good place and you're in a healthy place and that you're going to bring positive and healthy things to their program. So it's okay to say, I have worked with a therapist, but put that in the past. Um, don't it's you don't have to let them know that it's something you're doing right now. Why are you applying to this program at this school, and be specific about that. And let them feel, even if they're not your number one choice, you make them feel like that they're your number one choice for each school you write to. You may have your schools ranked if you're applying to 10 programs. Um, they may be the bottom on your list, but when you're writing to them, you let them feel like they're your number one. Any limitations? If they say, "What are your limitations coming into this program?" Um, you let them know that limitation, but you turn it into a positive and let them know, kind of like when they ask a question when you're interviewing, what are some of um, your limitations, or what's the worst aspect of your life? What are they asking to? Again, you're wanting to turn that around and turn it into a positive. Let them know what you've been doing to work on that, and or that you have things covered. So maybe one of your limitations is that I'm a mother or father of 5 kids, but you let them know I've got daycare set up. They're in a good place. They're all at this age, and so from this time they'll be in school. So whatever that limitation is, you let them know I've got it covered, and I've got the support that I need to go to school. Letting them know your educational, professional goals and expectations. They should know kind of what you plan on doing with it, and you may not know. Some of you already have it figured out. You know exactly what you want to do, and some of you may be still figuring that out, and that's okay. You don't have to necessarily be specific, but you do want to let them know that you've thought about it. Let them know, hey, I'm still trying to narrow it down, but here's why I'm taking this program, and here's why it matters, and here's how this program is going to help me to be able to get to my goals. And you want to write this and edit it, and it needs to catch their attention, but it does need to be well written. It doesn't need to be full of mistakes. These are people that have probably been grading papers for years. Um, this may be people that are going to sit down and read 15 of these with a glass of wine. Possibly you need to capture their attention, write it well. It needs to be mistake free. This is a writing sample to them, and it needs to be well written. They are not at this point going to want to teach you how to write. You should already know that. And they can teach you how to write case notes and things like that. And in this field, there are there is a lot of writing. You may be writing, essays. You may be writing books someday. You are going to be keeping a lot of case notes. So writing, you may think, well, I get out of college, I'm done writing. You're not. You're gonna be keeping detailed case notes because I've heard from like Dr. Draper, your case notes may be brought into a court of law, and there may be a child that's being abused, and if your case notes aren't convincing enough and they're not detailed enough, you may put them back into a situation where they're just going to go back into abuse because you didn't do your job for that individual. So case notes, keeping detailed case notes about your clients and things, or about situations, is a really big deal. So before you start writing, I'm going to kind of skim through this. I'm trying to make this video short, so you can read through a lot of this, but before you start writing, you can write down some of these things. Ask yourself these questions. What's unique, special, distinctive, or impressive about you and your life story? What details of your life, personal or family problems, history, people or events that have shaped or influenced your goals? Writing about that type of stuff. So I'm going to let you look through those. You can do some pre-writing, write some ideas down, and then figure out what you want to cover in your essay. Good, because you don't need to cover all of that. And again, anything negative, turn it into a positive. The bottom one though, if you've worked a lot during your college years, what have you learned about your leadership, managerial skills, for example? I know a student that his GPA was not great. And, I was like, well, what's your school years look like? And he's like, well, I'm an international student, which is just more difficult. There's so many more requirements on them than if you're from this country. So this guy was supporting a family and working about 80 hours a week and going to school full time. Like, I don't know how he did it. But, he wrote about that in his essay and said, my GPA is okay, but it's not where I wanted to be. And here's why. I had this going on, and kind of explained it, and then said, while I was doing this, I learned these skills. I learned how time management, my everyday schedule was laid out, and it's very, particular. I worked on it over the weekend. I knew going into the next week, what I was going to be doing. He just laid that all out and put it in there for them. And they wouldn't know that if you don't, if he didn't tell them that. So that's the thing too. You've got to put those types of things in there. What are your career goals? I'm going to read a few things to you from a magazine of things to think about. You can write, describe a situation where you overcame adversity, learn from failure, or experience an ethical dilemma. Why do you need this degree at this juncture in your life? What are your short and long-term career goals? What are you most proud of? And the big one, why this school? Why this program, and why this school? And you let them know that you're knowledgeable about that. What you want to study in graduate school, why you want to study it, and why their institution is the best place for you. So those are 3 things that you can specifically talk about the specific graduate programs. What do you want to study in school? Why do you want to study it? And why their institution is the best place for you? And why should they choose you as part of their cohort? You need to be convincing of those types of things. Any discrepancies of your, GRE scores, why you don't have a ton of experience, why your GPA was average in the beginning, anything like that, you can cover it and make sure that they know why. Have you overcome any unusual obstacles, hardships, economic, family, physical things in your life? I didn't write about it in my essay, but as I was going through school, I lost a house in South Carolina. We overcame a lot of hardships for me to be able to get where I was. I didn't feel like I needed to talk about those, but if some of those things are happening to you, you could possibly talk about it. But again, make sure that you let them know that you're resilient, that you've overcome, and then what you've learned from those types of things. Why might you be a stronger candidate for graduate school? Or why are you, are you the best choice for them? Or, why are you how are you gonna outwork other people? Show them that you have a good personality and that you would be a good pick and a good fit for, their graduate program. Some do's and don'ts. Consider your audience. You're working with college professors, so it needs to be really well written. You're going to probably have multiple versions of this. You're not just going to sit down and write it like you're going to this weekend and it's going to be a finished product. You can look at it, read it, find ways that it can be written stronger, find other things to talk about that you might not have thought about, but you can write down some ideas of things to talk about, put them in there, begin to trim it down, see what needs to say, see what needs to go, narrow it down. You don't have to cover all the details. Just make sure that they get a really good idea. You do want to be specific about things, and you do want to tell stories about things. But if it's a 2-page essay and you've talked for, page and a half of your life story, and then you start covering very quickly the things that they specifically wanted you to talk about, it may not be as strong because you're covering those things quickly. So make sure it has a balance. Make sure you hit on the things that you want them to hear, and make sure you're covering the things that they want you to talk about. Turn things into a positive, include life-shaping experiences, stay within the length requirements. Don't repeat what's on your application, CV, or resume. Include high school awards, unless they're, if you were valedictorian of your high school class, if you started doing hundreds or thousands of hours of volunteer work, back in high school, that's the only time that you want to focus on high school. Don't focus on the negative. You can, if you've gone through difficult things in your lives, you don't have to be very specific about each thing and very detail oriented. You can, cover it, skim it, give them a good idea without going into, ugly, nasty details, and tell your story and make it positive, not focusing on the negative. Okay, the tips and things, I'm going to let you read through those. They are good about, telling you how to start a story, define an angle, and to be specific about things. There's good things in there. Concentrating on the opening paragraph, hooking them, like hooking a fish. Make sure that you, once they read that first couple paragraphs, that they're interested, that they are looking forward to what you have to say and what you're talking about. I'm going to let you read through those tips and things. Color, clarity, cut, carrot, all of those are good. Then I'm going to go to reviewing your essay. So you're going to write it and hopefully have multiple drafts of that. And then afterwards, when you review your essay, are you within the length limitation? Did you spell check and proofread? So, things like this is their report, or over there, don't mess up on words like that. You proofread it and then get other people to proofread it. In fact, whoever is writing your letters or recommendations, this may be a good thing to have them look over and to read about you, because any information you can give them about why you want to go to graduate school, and they can see some of the things that you've been through, may help them write a stronger letter of recommendation for you. You should let them see your resume, especially if it's been a few years that you've been out of school. Maybe you take a 2-year break before you go to graduate school. And then you want to stay in contact with them, and we'll talk about that on a different day, but stay in contact with them so that they know you. But if it's been a couple years and they're like, can you remind me what classes you took from me? What are your goals? Can you send me your resume? Anything that you can send them to help them out when they're writing their letter of recommendation can be really good. And they can review this for you because they're college professors and give you some feedback on it. Just have multiple people read through it. Don't just, because sometimes we don't pick up on our own mistakes. So make sure that other people are reading through it. And you can ask your professors that are work members, whoever's writing your letters of recommendations, to possibly read through this and give you some feedback on it. Did you answer all parts to each question? So, look at that prompt and say, okay, they're looking for this. Where can I find that in my essay? And you need to specifically find it and make sure that it's clear that they see it, because you need to cover everything of what they're asking you to do. Did you state your information clearly? Is there anything too wordy or repetitive? Make sure that you cut those down and cut out the repetitiveness. Does each paragraph convey a specific meaningful point? So each paragraph should be direct and should have a specific point that you're trying to cover of why you should be in their program. Why should they pick you, types of things. And each paragraph, if you're trying to tell a story or whatever of your life, and when the specific moment you knew that you wanted to be a marriage and family therapist, and that may have been from a 1010 class that you took. It may be from family experience of how a therapist helped your family or whatever. Make sure that each paragraph is written well and is specific and covers a meaningful point of your essay. And can you combine, if it's too wordy or anything, can you combine paragraphs to convey the same idea? You may be trying to reduce your space, and man, it's got to be 2 pages, but I'm at 2.5. Well, what can I cut out of here, and can I combine anything where it still makes a good, solid point, but that's still gets my point across, and it's written well. Okay. So make sure that you go through the PowerPoint and read through it, especially the points where it's talking about preparing to write and as you're writing it. So this weekend you are to turn in your prompt. Your prompt is not your essay. You'll turn in your prompt of what they want you to write about. And again, find one if you can't find it in your admission process. It should say something about writing a personal statement or admission essay, as that's usually one of the parts of applying for a graduate program. If you can't find one, find a prompt, find a program that is close to yours, find a prompt, just copy and paste that onto a document of what you're going to be writing about. And if you want to put it at the top of your essay, for me, when I start reading through those, that may be helpful too. I'm not going to take off, certainly, for that. And then you're going to write and follow that prompt and write your essay. And that'll give you a few things to think about. And write it as if you were trying to get in this program. Because you may go back to this when it is time to write it and say, I had this assignment. What did I write for that? What did I do good in there? What do I like that I wrote about? And I've had people, do that all the time. So that's it. I will have more lectures up, getting back into our graduate school material next week. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and keep your heads up, your chins up, and yeah, we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.